Joshua 19:40 to 48, the inheritance of Dan. Joshua 19:40 to 48 records the final tribal allotment given by Lot, this time to the tribe of Dan. Their inheritance included cities along the western coastal region of Canaan. The passage concludes by noting that the Danites fought against Leshem, captured it, destroyed its inhabitants, settled there, and renamed the city Dan after their ancestor. The distribution of the land demonstrates that the inheritance of Israel was not determined by human ambition, but by God's sovereign purpose. Every tribe received what the Lord had promised through Moses. The casting of lots was not an act of chance, but an acknowledgement that the Lord himself determined each inheritance. Proverbs 16:33. Israel did not create its inheritance. They received it. Dan's territory presented challenges because of the strength of the surrounding peoples. Although the land had been assigned, possessing it required confidence in God's promise. The later history of Dan reveals that they struggled to remain within their original borders, eventually seeking territory farther north. Joshua 19:47 summarizes this movement by describing their conquest of Leshem and their settlement there. This illustrates an important distinction between receiving a promise and experiencing its enjoyment. God had already granted the land to Israel, yet many tribes failed to fully possess what had already been given because of unbelief and compromise. The Lord's faithfulness was never lacking. The limitations arose from Israel's response. The inheritance of God's people ultimately points beyond the physical land of Canaan. The earthly inheritance served as a shadow of the greater and lasting inheritance brought through Jesus Christ. Under the new covenant, believers do not receive a geographical territory, but an everlasting inheritance that cannot perish, fade, or be taken away. What Joshua distributed among the tribes temporarily, Christ has secured permanently for his people through his finished work. The account of Dan also reminds readers that earthly possessions are temporary. Cities can be conquered, borders can shift, and nations can rise and fall. Throughout Scripture, these historical events anticipate the transition from the Old Covenant order to the eternal kingdom established through Christ. The promises of God reach their fulfillment not in the perpetual possession of earthly territory, but in the establishment of his everlasting kingdom through the Messiah. The conquest of Leshem also highlights God's authority over the nations. The God who gave Israel victory is the same God who directs the course of history according to his covenant purposes. Every victory in Joshua contributed to the completion of God's promise to Abraham that his descendants would inherit the land. These events testified that the Lord keeps every covenant promise he makes. For believers today, the certainty found in Joshua is even greater because the inheritance secured by Christ rests entirely upon his accomplishment rather than human performance. The blessings of the new covenant are not maintained by continual striving, but are grounded in the faithfulness of the one who fulfilled every requirement of the law. Because his work is complete, those who belong to him possess a permanent inheritance that cannot be lost, for it is secured by his righteousness rather than their own. Joshua 19, verse 40 to 48, therefore closes the record of Dan's inheritance while directing attention to the greater inheritance revealed through Christ. The temporary land of Canaan anticipated the eternal blessings of God's kingdom, where his people enjoy complete rest, perfect fellowship with him, and the full realization of every promise he has made.